through 11. And this is the last piece before we are officially in Holy Week in our text. And so here we come. When we come to verse 12, which we'll start with tomorrow, we get the next day. So what's taking place is just before the next day. And the next day is the triumphal entry. Jesus enter into Jerusalem, Palm Sunday. So that is the start of Holy Week. So we go to the previous day. That's where we're at. This is kind of the Saturday before Holy Week. And here we find Lazarus with what's happening. Now, remember, Lazarus, this is talking to almost 2 chapters. Lazarus, friend of Jesus, Mary and Martha, lived in Bethany, a couple miles away from Jerusalem, died. Jesus comes. I am the resurrection. I am the life. I am the one who has come. And to show you, I am the one in charge of these things. In fact, I am the one. He raises Lazarus from the dead. And so the immediate response is, let us seek to kill Jesus. Then you run into Mary, Martha, and Lazarus thanking Jesus, praising him, lifting him up, as Lazarus is now a disciple of Jesus. And that's something that kind of goes all the way through. And you have the anointing by Mary. So all of that has taken place. And now, verse 9, when the large crowd of Jews learned that Jesus was there, that there is with Lazarus and Mary and Martha, they came not on the account of him, but also to see Lazarus, whom he had raised from the dead, because they knew Lazarus was dead. They knew Jesus was there. They knew that Lazarus was alive, and they saw it. This shows who Jesus is. And Jesus has said, I am the resurrection and the life, that he is the one in charge of all of that. And that is who has come now. And this is Jesus. So it's seen Jesus and the sign and see them together. That's what this large crowd is wanting. Now, secondly, you're also going to notice in these next words here, you have the large crowd coming, and many are going to believe. We're going to get to that before we get to Palm Sunday, get to that today. So many will believe Jesus is the Christ. Many will know that. On the other hand, you also have the other crowd that wants to kill Jesus. So sometimes the thought process, and this is setting this up, the thought is, how could the people shouting, Hosanna, Hosanna in the highest, blessed is the King of David on Palm Sunday, then be shouting, crucify him on Good Friday? The short answer is it's two different groups. One, the pilgrims, the people, the one who had come to see Lazarus, those were the ones, Hosanna in the highest, with the palm branches. The Jewish leaders and the people in the temple, some of them, those that want Jesus and are afraid that he will take their power, will bring the Romans down upon their heads. That is the crowd on Good Friday. Crucify him, crucify him. So you have two different groups all together here in a very explosive dynamic that could happen. That's why Pontius Pilate does all that he can in order to try to disfuse and to kind of push Jesus away. He doesn't want this to happen. His life is on the line. So he does all the other things that we're going to get to as we go further along to Monday, Thursday, Good Friday, in Holy Week. Now, they are also that. So here you have Lazarus. They come to see Jesus. They come to see this sign, this proof, you could say, of who he is. So the chief priest made plans to put Lazarus to death as well. And so they're going to put him to death. He's a friend of Jesus. And we know that those that are friends of Jesus will be persecuted. He has been raised and they can't deny it. So you just kill him again. That way he is there. Problem solved. You also have Mary and Martha. You also have the crowds, and you have this taking place at the home. So you got all of those things happening and taking place, and they see Pete, and this is key. Why are they seeking to kill Lazarus? Because on account of him, on account of Lazarus, both him being who he is, raised from the dead, and him being now a disciple of Jesus. In other words, a proclaimer. The Jews were going away and believing in Jesus. On account of Jesus, many were believing. And this took place just before the next day's Palm Sunday. So many of those of that large crowd that believed were, if that crowd, the very next verse we get to tomorrow, of the crowd of Jesus on a donkey being proclaimed, "You are the King of Israel." And so that is that crowd that is going away and believing as they see this sign. Now, just a last note here, a little bit on Lazarus as we go forward. It's kind of last point to bring this up. Uh, there in Bethany, a church has been built. It's been destroyed, built, destroyed, built, destroyed, built. But first church dates back to mid 300s, 330 to 390. I kind of think more mid 300s is when that church was built. That there was a tomb in which pilgrims would go to dates back even earlier. Now, different traditions have different things that they say about Lazarus and what happened after this. Among the Lutherans, we do have a commemoration day, along with Mary and Martha. July 29th is the date in which we kind of remember Lazarus and all of what happened. However, you have two different traditions, the East and the West. In the Eastern Church, and you've got very different. So, which one is true? That's up for discussion. But there are some similarity points in here. On the East, they say that he went to Cyprus, 30-year bishop there. There he died and was buried. The other tradition is that this is in the West, Lazarus, Mary, and Martha were kind of cast out, floated, eventually went all the way to Gaul, I think France, and he became a bishop at Marseille. And so you have these two different things. And for there, they would say that underneath Domitian, Lazarus was beheaded. Now, you've got these different traditions, and yet you get the common. Lazarus was a disciple. The specifics we don't know, but he was a disciple. He was a leader of the church. He was a sharer of the church. He was a witness. People believed through the work that Lazarus did. And I think the Eastern Church has an interesting take on it, whether it's true or not. This tradition is, and sometimes you get tradition, and a tradition is different from this is the word of the Lord. And the tradition is that during those 30 years of Lazarus, after being raised from the dead, that he never smiled because of the need that he saw for people to hear and believe. Now, whether or not he smiled or not, unknown, but you see the theme in those traditions. All of this happened. Lazarus then didn't stay there. He went elsewhere, proclaimed the word. Many heard and believed as God worked through Lazarus. In that name, may we be proclaimers of letting people know what God has done for us. In that name.